How many people in here are second generation heating shop? Would you mind doing me a favor, and for second generation heating, would you please stand for a minute, please? Please stand. Pete, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, great. And you guys, I'm just going to say this. I don't care what generation you are, business is difficult. And I thank you guys for sticking with it and following through with the dream. Thank you guys. We appreciate that. How many of you folks have bought an existing business? Can you stand? Would you mind doing that for me? Bought an existing business or started a brand new business from scratch? Okay. And there's another group here and more. Thank you guys. It's amazing. How about third and beyond generations? Are you in the room? Anybody with that? Dave? Casey? Pete again? Awesome. You guys, that's over here? Point? Amazing, you guys. Thank you very much. And my point is, when you guys were growing up, did you guys have like furnaces and air conditioners on your bedroom wall as kids growing up? Anybody? You did? Rob? We have help for you, sir. Captain America, right, yeah. You had Captain America? He has a tattoo of Captain America. So we can get you help too. Well, I don't know about you guys, but my background really was bass fishing. And my goal and dream was to be a professional bass fisherman like a Bill Dance. And I trailed him around and got to meet him and Babe Winkleman, Al Linder, all those guys. And I really love the fishing world. And I spent a lot of time in that. And you guys most of you guys know I was charter boat captain for 20 years and all that kinds of stuff. And it teaches you certain things. But when I was able to sell or convince Tina to marry me, it was 30 years ago. And it was amazing because I was a fisherman, and that's what I had to sell. Long hair, shorts, that's it. That's all I had. And a car it was a really hot car. Let me explain it. It was a light baby blue Gremlin. It was amazing, just amazing stuff. I had a really hot Mach 5 Mustang for a day. My mom's sitting back here. She made me take it back. She said I'd kill myself. I don't know what that was about. But along the way, I had friendship with this gentleman right down here, Charlie Swartz, who was my father-in-law. And we were friends. We did some hunting together, some fishing together. And I promise you, I'm not here to embarrass him at all. I love the man dearly, and I owe my life to him, actually. But can you imagine, the guy? How did you put it, Charlie? You said something like, "What?" And Julie introduced us, Tina and I, together. And Charlie said he was mad, and I was like stunned. I'm like, "What do you mean? I got shorts. I have stuff. I got shorts. I can fish." And it was just almost like now I have 3 daughters, so I understand this feeling. But he was like, "Really?" So after being very careful, but being a very good leader, a very strong man, he said, "You know what? The HVAC industry, was growing." And this was a little bit over 30 years ago. And this is my 30th year in the industry. And it was amazing to me that he was able to walk me through it. He says, "Hey, you want to be a sheet metal worker?" And I'm like, "What's that?" He goes, "Well, you bend sheet metal and stuff, and can you cut yourself?" And I'm like, "Nah, that's not good." And I was so used to, baiting a hook and casting and smelling like a fish. I smell like a fish all the time. And it didn't make sense to me. But then he said, "You know what?" He says, "You're pretty good at fixing stuff. You like to fix stuff, right?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he said, "Well, we're starting an EST program in the union." And Charlie, at the time, Charlie was a local 18 business agent. And he says, "And I'm developing a new program for the EST program. It's the service tax." I go, "That sounds kind of interesting." He goes, "Well, I go, how much do you get paid?" And it was less than I was making as a fisherman. And I'm like, fired up, And he says, "Show me your insurance for your new family coming on board. Show me your future that you have in fishing." And I was really good, guys. I was a very good fisherman. And I had passion. I loved to fish. Really? And the nice thing about it was, I was always weather-driven, so I said, "Well, I don't want to get another weather-driven business," but we did. And he said, so he helped me get my apprenticeship. And through the apprenticeship program, I'll just say it this way. I worked at a Martin Peterson company. I worked with Derek and Charlie Wolcombe. I worked with Mike Burns over here. All these guys became friends. But along that journey, I was fired 3 times. I'm not proud of that, and neither was Charlie. But he was always very nice about it and said, get back to work, figure this out, stop being a jerk. You can't be a fisherman your whole life. And then I tried to quit 3 times. And every single time I tried to quit, I went to his house and I said, hey, can I talk? And he goes, sure. And he must have knew it, I don't know. He's like, sit down, let's talk. And pretty soon he reminded me of a few things. He reminded me of my 3 daughters. At that time I had 1 daughter, 2 daughters. He reminded me of my commitment to my wife. He reminded me of a bunch of things. And then he reminded me of my dream. And I just, I went back. He said, just keep doing it. I know it's not hard. I know it's not fun. I know it's not what you want to do. But you go in there and fight, do the best you can every single day, and then keep growing in the business. This is a great industry. He kept telling me, this is a great industry. This is a great industry. It's a great industry. And he continued to show that in his actions. A lot of people say, like, listen to what I'm telling you. But it's hard to hear what they're telling you when their actions speak so loud. But his actions spoke very loud. And we kept moving forward. And I watched him go through the industry and help a lot of people get jobs. There's many people in this room that may know him from his local 18 years. And he went back into work back into the shop. And he brought safety into the field of HVAC in the shop that we worked in, which was, at that time, you didn't hear of it. It just wasn't really a practice. And that started a whole new trend in that industry for us, especially local in the Kenosha area. But I can just say that I don't know, you guys. This was not what I wanted to do. Is anybody else there? Was anybody else there at one time? And I looked at it and said, is this really what it's all about? Going to work and being in the field, being at 100 degrees on a rooftop, and when you stand in one spot to service a rooftop, it's not a good choice, because if it's 100-some degrees, your feet kind of stick to the roof. And then you're like, trying to move. And then when it's cold outside, when it's cold outside and there's windshield and stuff, it gets really cold on a rooftop. Who works on rooftops? A lot of you guys have worked on rooftops, right? And we know. It's rough. It's tough. It hurts. But you do it. And you can get good at it. You can have a career at it and a life at it. And that's kind of what we've been establishing here as a group. Eric said it so well. He said, stop being a heating contractor. Look at servicing. Look at taking care of the company. Look at the customers. Look at growing with them. Look at making their lives the best so that you come back and grow your business. Start thinking out of the box, I think, is how you finish that statement. And I think that's so important, because we don't always think out of the box. It kind of hits us all day long in a pattern. And I'll just say this last thing about my father-in-law, Charlie, and my mother-in-law, Julie. I want to thank Julie for introducing her daughter to me and trusting me with that. Yes, thank you. But I do want to thank Charlie for believing in me, having patience with me, and helping me grow through the programs, and always pushing me forward, going, hey, that's a good choice. So keep going. And to me, that meant a lot. And I do have a plaque for him if he's willing to come up and get it. If he's not, it's okay. But I do think this, you guys. One way or another, the ripple effect that this man has caused has changed lots of lives. And whether you realize it or not, he's had impact in your life, because we're here together. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me thank my father-in-law, Charlie Schwartz. Thank you, Dad.
Thank you.
Let's get a picture together.
I just knew that he was never going to make a good fisherman, so
Thank you. We're all blessed when we have special people enter our lives, and I want to thank you for coming out today. And just a little behind the scenes, I've never lied to him. Probably 32 years I've known him, 33 years, I've never lied to him. I lied to him to ask him to come. So I feel bad about that. But I knew if I told him I wanted to honor him, he would not do it, because he's a very humble man. And thank you for being here, Charlie. Thank you very much. I'm going to talk about some people here. Marty, if you can give me the Elmo here for a second. I'm going to talk about these three people right here, and this will be the tale of my story. This is my father in the middle, and his mom, of course, they wouldn't switch that around, and his father. The amazing thing about these folks is this was the last time they saw each other. That's just a few hours before he shipped off to go to war in Japan. And a pretty amazing story because he worked in a cheese factory in Tennessee. And at 24 years old, they had a 4-year-old. They got married at 16 and 17. My grandmother had a really tough childhood. She was actually raising 3 kids, her sisters and brother and sisters, and doing a lot of stuff. And her father had died, and her mom was sick. And he married her to get her out of that and give her an opportunity for a better life. And like a lot of stories like that a lot of us have of our people that we've come from, our families, our heritage. And what's interesting about this is as World War II broke out and we decided to engage in Germany, everybody was kind of laying low, and the armies were, reserves were all fighting, right? And we heard about D-Day and all these specific things that were happening. And my grandfather kept looking. This is interviewing my grandmother 5 to 7 years ago with a tape recorder. And she would say that he would come home and say, honey, I don't know if I can stay out of this draft. You know, William was the last Chatmon, but I'm not sure that's good enough to keep me out of this war. And then Pearl Harbor was bombed, and then things got tight. The draft this started to pour down on people. So one of his buddies told him this piece of advice. This is a good point. First of all, when you get advice from somebody, make sure they're right. Here's what his buddy said. Hey, Harry, his name is Harry absent Chatmon. Harry, if you go and you enlist, you can pick what branch of the service you want to be in, and then you can pick what you want to do. So he came home and talked to my grandmother, and she said, well, what do you think? He says, well, I think I want to go to San Diego in the Navy and work in the shipyards and build ships. That way, you and William can move out there with me, and we can have some sort of a normal life through this war thing, and then I'll be in the United States. I'll be protected by the United States, and we'll be fine, but at least I'm serving our country. She's like, okay, so go do it. So he did. He went in and he enlisted, and here's what happened. They put him in the Marines Infantry Division, 1st Division to fight. Unbelievable. How does that happen? Because his information was not true. And when they needed people, they filled the gap when he enlisted. So as the story went on, he trained for 10 months in San Diego, and my grandmother gets a phone call. He says, Edie, her name was Edith, Edie, if you want to see me before I ship out, I have 4 hours before they're locked on the base, and we're shipping out. So she left her job and got in a cab and picked up my dad at a daycare, and they got in there. He said, before you get here, though, pick up a box of cigarettes and a box of matches, because that was like gold for them, right? And what happened next was she goes in there and she sees them, and this is the picture. This is the picture that she took almost the last time she saw them, last time my dad saw them. And what happened was he squatted down, talked to my father, and she was really breaking down. He looked up at her and said, if you break down now, if you start to cry, I'm going to cry, and William's going to see his dad for the last time in the wrong impression. Like, don't do it, please, be strong. So she sucked it up, and she threw the matches at him, grabbed my father, and ran to the cigarettes and ran to the cab. As she drove out of the gate, she realized that under her arm was still the box of matches. So she pleaded with the guards to let him back in, which is not, once you leave, you're done, right? So she got back in, but she couldn't find him. She couldn't find him. So she ran behind the barracks where they lived, where he was stationed at that point, and she was running around there with the box of matches, really worried about giving him what he wanted. And she turned the corner, she saw 2 men leaning against a brick wall. And she approached him. She saw one was my grandfather. And she said, as I approached him, I kind of slowed down. She said, I slowed down, and then I heard them talking. And I couldn't help but listen in. And the one fellow that became a good friend of his from another part of Tennessee where my family was from said, well, did you tell him? And he says, no, and he's crying. She's never heard him cry before. And he said, how do you tell your family you'll never see him again? You see, when she got back to the house, his paperwork was there. And I don't have it because her second husband tore it up because she was really thinking about him still, I guess, from what she told me. And he said, you ship out for the Japanese islands. And what's going to happen is you need to prepare your family. Your return is highly doubtful. And she knew. She knew. So they wrote letters, and back and forth, and all kinds of things happened. And almost a year after his death, the letters were still coming. And unfortunately, most of it was destroyed. I have many of the letters here that she was able to hide from her second and third husband. And I'll show you a couple. I'll just put a couple on the screen. But here's one of the things that is amazing as you start to read the ones that he had. And then I've tried to highlight them and, lighten them up and darken them up and all kinds of stuff. And I know you all have people in the military, but this is basically the first letter talking about his first time he had to kill somebody and how that's not what he wanted to do, and how they protected each other by all shooting and all kinds of stuff like that. And there's other letters that before that talk about, I'm not made for this. I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be raising a family. What's going on? I believe in our country. Honey, I'll be fine. I'll be home soon. And all kinds of money and stuff like that. And, of course, then you get the one that says, he's passed away. So, we all fight through those decisions. But the thing is this. Here's some of the battle stuff that I've been able to figure out and read and do. I've done a lot of research. Eden knows I've done lots of research. So I've pulled apart the History Channel like you'd not believe. I have a video back there in Okinawa. And guess what? That's what the History Channel did. They bought all this video. And they followed the Marines Division, the 1st Division, through the entire island war. There was one person left from this division. One. The other guy from Tennessee. So he was able to come back and talk to my grandmother and tell her all kinds of stuff that she had questions about. That really made some really important stuff. And I have all kinds of statistics. And I'll tell you this, bar those, I'll tell you this. D-Day was a big day. We lost lots of people. But unfortunately, Okinawa was 500,000 Americans fought and perished in one island. See, the first island he got off on, and I just all of a sudden lost the name of the island. It's probably in my notes here, but I'm not going to put my glasses on to read them. He got off and he fought, and a couple days into the island fight, he was shot in the leg. All right. They saved him. They put him back on the ship. They took care of him. And then he missed 2 island fights as they moved through that area, trying to take island after island back from the Japanese. Finally, they get to Peleliu. And I'm sure if you all heard of the island of Peleliu fight. One of the bloodiest battles ever, because the Japanese were lining the beaches, and as the boats came ashore, just like in D-Day, they were sitting ducks. Now, our government decided, our leaders, our generals decided not to bombard the shorelines with ammunition, with shells, because they were going to take Okinawa. And they needed to save as much ammunition as they possibly could. So those poor soldiers fought a bloody bath in Peleliu. He fought a bloody bath too. He fought through the island. I have another letter I can put up there, but it's in there. But what happened in Peleliu, after 4 days, he was shot in the head. A bullet passed through his head and it didn't kill him. They put him back on the ship, bandaged him up. He missed the next 3 island fights. And here's the thing that happened in Okinawa. If you can breathe and you can stand, you can fight. They cleared the ships. And he got off again. And there were 3 guys left. It was himself, his friend from Tennessee, and a reporter. And I've tried. I've tried to see him. I want to get to know this guy. Who can make those kind of decisions? I know they lock down the barracks. I know they do these different things so people don't run off. But he still had to make the decision to stay there long enough to go fight. So I thought about this many times. I said, what was he like? What's going to be? See, my father lost his dad at 4 years old. I have my father still today. I feel very blessed by that. I love my entire family. It's amazing. But how does a 4-year-old boy, become a man when his father's gone? And unfortunately, my grandmother said it this way. She said, I married your grandfather for love. I married my next husband for looks. And I married my last husband for fun. And those 2 guys were bad dudes. And I won't tell you about their story. But how does my father come through this culture bringing up with those examples? Well, I talked to my mom about that a little bit on the way here yesterday. And she said, well, we got married early, and we fought a lot of battles together. And my mom's father was very strong. And he looked to that father, much like I have Charlie. Look for that stable movement forward to make sure that the next generation has a fighting chance. See, it doesn't come by giving people easiness. I remember sitting down with Charlie talking about this. Talking about making it easy for our kids. Making it easy, too easy for our kids to have stuff. But we wanted to give them stuff. We wanted to say that we can do things. But we didn't make them fight for it. We bought the lettering machine you see outside for one was final straw for us, Tina and I, to make a decision. We wanted our kids to have to work for what they wanted. And as soon as we bought that company, we were broke. Anything they wanted, they had to come to work. And it changed them. I know you've seen Carolyn tonight, and she's an amazing young lady. And my middle daughter, Jess, is a school teacher, is an amazing young lady. My daughter, Sam, was here the last couple of days. Amazing young lady. We're very, very blessed. But they had to work for it. They had to fight for it. It's not been easy. And as you look through all these things, I kind of look back and I say, well, my father planted his dream of his father in me. So every time it was tough, when Tina and I got married, I was, 20, Charlie? Tina was 21. She knew better. And I was scared. I was really scared. We had a child come on the way, but I knew one thing. I kept seeing that picture of my grandfather. And if he could do the things he did for our country, for his family, for himself, I knew I could raise my family. I knew I could fight the battles. And I had to do it. I had to face up to it. But that's the kind of thing that kept me going through all these different controversies. That's what made me fight. That's what made me fights to defend my family. Well, I've asked myself a lot of times, was him, when my grandfather went to war, like many of our family members, and many of you in this room, and I love you people for doing that. I love you guys for giving yourself to our country, protection of our families. Yes, it's huge. And I thought about the ripple effect of him going. What if he would have stayed around? Would my dad been the same dad? They wouldn't have moved to the same place. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have met my mom. My mom's an amazing, amazing strong lady. Wouldn't have happened. The ripple effect would not have been put in place if you would not have made those critical decisions to move on. See, here's where the story really starts to freak me out. At 42 years old, my father was in great shape, best shape I've ever seen him in. He just ran a 24-mile marathon, which he drugged me through it and I almost killed myself. And he ran that 24-mile marathon, because it's one of the things he always wanted to do. Let's see how that year went. The fall, we ran a marathon. February, Tina and I were married. June, Carolyn was a baby, born. We had her in our hands. My parents were divorced later, 2 months later, I think. Maybe June, somewhere like in June area. My dad had a motorcycle accident in that area. Started riding a motorcycle. I always rode a motorcycle, but he started. Hit his head, and some things started to change. And at 42 years old, he had a tumor in the brain, and he had a stroke. It's interesting stuff because having a stroke at 42 years old, I get a phone call from my mom saying, your dad's is sick, he's in the hospital, you need to get there. I get there, my dad's breathing, he's talking, I'm like, what's going on? And he said, the doctors tell me you're having DTs. You see, my dad's second father and third father were alcoholics, really bad. He lost everything. And he started down a bad path. How did it happen? It wasn't there before. But things changed. Then all of a sudden, he's like, you got to do something. You got to help me, Dave. And I'm like, what do you mean I got to help you? I just got married, just had a baby. I'm 20 years old, Dad. What do you want from me? And he died. I looked at Tina. Tina ran out of the room, got the nurses down there. She actually grabbed the nurses and threw them down the hallway so they could do a trach and get them to stay alive. And for the next few weeks, it was really something. What did I do? Well, at 20 years old, what do you normally do? What should you do? Get better advice. Get those around you that you know you can count on that can help you forever. I called Charlie. I had Tina and Charlie. I had my mom was amazingly strong, of course. I had the priest that married us. He would baptize all of our daughters. We started a support group. We started studying the information. All along they're saying you have to sign this form to turn the machine off. Your father's dead. And I refused to believe it. I just refused to believe it. And I didn't want to make a decision too quickly. And it's hard. Those are hard decisions. And I kept looking back at Charlie saying, what do I do? He said, let's think through it. So finally, after the fourth doctor said, your dad is dead, I'm sorry. You have to turn the machines on. You have to turn the machines off. He's done. I looked at her and I said, you've got to do something. So unfortunately, Charlie's sister was the head of nurses for St. Catherine's Hospital. Tina called her and said, I need help. And she said, well, there's a doctor that I just helped up in Milwaukee. His name is Dr. Suchia. And he's new. He's got some new things he's trying. I can't promise anything, but let's see if I can pull a favor. The next thing I know, we're all in the room, and Dr. Suchia looks at me and says, I'm sorry, your father is dead. And I said, well, give me something. Tell me something. He said, Dave, there's no brain signal. There's nothing. We've poked them. We've propped them. We've done all these things. There's nothing there. There's no brain signal. And I said, give me something. He said, well, if you moved a finger or you moved a toe or something, we would go in there and try surgery. We'd try to remove the tumor. And I leaned over to my dad and I whispered in his ear and I said, Dad, I can't do anything more. This is it. You have to move your finger. And he did. They did. And he went in there immediately and they did surgery, and many, many years of having to learn how to, can you think about how to learn how to breathe? See, they removed the part of his brain that controls your motor skills. He learned how to breathe, how to move, how to swallow, how to make his brain make his body move. He had to make that happen again, all over again, while still being very, very messed up. He's really good now. I mean, he drives and he works. He's been still working. He's a chef, And he still works as a chef in the back room of a really nice, called the Bartley House in Kenosha. And he's done a lot of cool things. He remarried, and he's a great man, and I love him so much. I spend as much time with him as I can, not enough. But here's where the ripple effect comes into place, ladies and gentlemen. After reading my notes I wrote years back, I remember seeing some things that I found out. Like having the chance to talk to Dr. Suchia and ask him, tell him thank you and talk to him and ask him about stuff and find out where he's from. You see, Dr. Suchia was a very young 10-year-old kid when his city was bombed and his parents were dead and everything around was gone in Okinawa. You understand the fact that the Marines took his village from him. They gathered the living and they got them healthy. He had brain injuries. He had all these things going on, he said. But he watched the medical people save the people that he did know, or the other Okinawans. And he vowed to devote his life to saving people's lives. I ask you this question. The things that we do every single day, what do they really mean? Is it just what bothers us right in front of us, or is it much bigger than that? Is there a generational gap? Is there something else? Is there a ripple effect? You see, if you wouldn't have gotten the ship and all the other Americans would not have gotten the ship to go fight for our country, would they have saved that island from the Japanese? Would they have put things back in order? Would this Dr. Suchia would have been driven to be the person he was to save my grandfather's son? You see, it's all connected. It's all connected. You see, we're not really heating contractors. We're really not just Lennox dealers. We're much greater than that. There is something that we're doing here. You guys have to understand. Heat Up Wisconsin was an idea born into something that's helping people with their lives. And we're just getting started. You see the Will Committee tomorrow? If you ladies aren't all in that Will Committee meeting, then I have done my job tonight. Because they're standing up to show us how to fight. This is not about heating equipment. This is not about being a heating contractor. This is about our families, our generations, and putting the industry back in the leadership spot. I think the electricians and the carpenters and all the other brands out there should be looking at you guys as the example that they want to be like. Because I want to be like you guys. Oh, we're not here by mistake or by chance. This is a ripple effect. It is in motion, and we are definitely a part of it. You guys, I want to say have a great night tonight. Have a lot of fun. And thank you for letting me share a personal story. And I want you guys to enjoy the blooper reel because we cut that short so you can see it now and give you some fun back in because I just probably took it out, right? But I want you to know the importance of what you're all really doing. You have to fight for your brand. Your brand is your name and your partner. And we are in the game with you. Joe wouldn't be here. Lindsay wouldn't be here. Gary wouldn't be here. Tom Tao would be flying right now from the West Coast to be here if we weren't in the game with you. And if I'm missing somebody else, I apologize. We're a team. We're together. I need you guys to fight shoulder to shoulder with me. Let's go take this industry by storm. God bless.